In northeast India, there's a village known as the Mizoram Mormons. This village consists of around 2,000 people that follow and worship a man named Ziona Chana. Ziona is the grandson of the founder who founded this religious sect in 1942 after he and some others were kicked out of a Presbyterian church over their views of religion being too liberal and dangerous. The belief of this group is that certain men in the Chana bloodline have been chosen by God to have as many wives and children as they can feed. But is it a cult? Yes, and here's my proof. Psychologists have been able to pinpoint certain characteristics that many cult leaders have had in common, and Ziona had some of these characteristics. We'll start with a grandiose sense of self. To have a grandiose sense of self, one must think that they are more superior than everyone else. And Ziona showed this with his house in the village. Yes, it is the largest because of the size of his family, but he decided to paint it lilac, a color that makes sure the house would be the center of attention. He also shows a grandiose sense of self by having a village-wide celebration for his birthday that takes place over 3 days. The celebration consists of communal feast, religious music, including hymns that are strictly for Ziona, dances, and parades. Although the group calls themselves Mormons, Ziona is the only one in the entire village that is allowed to have more than one wife. Not even Ziona's own sons are allowed to practice polygamy. Another show of a grandiose sense of self is that Ziona forces his wives to sleep in a dormitory setting while he has his own bedroom. But not only that, he would choose one wife a night to stay with him and have her tend to his needs. But most of all, the biggest show of this characteristic was that Ziona made a rule that only he could name his children, not the women who gave birth to them. The next characteristic of a cult leader that Ziona exhibited was a lack of remorse, shame, or guilt. It almost seems that cult leaders lack a conscience, especially when their actions affect other people. One thing that Ziona did which showed a lack of remorse, shame, and guilt was when his wives reach a certain age, they would be moved to a different floor in the house while the younger brides would stay in the dormitory next to his bedroom. Ziona had no shame in showing his wives that they are nothing but sexual objects to him. The followers of this group make a living by doing things such as woodworking and selling their goods at markets. But all of this income is given to Ziona, who makes all the decisions of how the money will be spent, which was normally spent on his own family. No remorse, shame, or guilt. Another characteristic of a cult leader is promiscuous sexual behavior and infidelity. Polygamy was outlawed in India in 1956, but there's a loophole. If you claim that polygamy is part of your religion, then that makes it legal. As I stated before, Ziona has proven that he views his wives as sexual objects by having the older ones move to a different floor in the house, while the younger ones stay within his reach. Polygamy is a promiscuous sexual behavior disguised as a religious act. Even the United Nations Human Rights Committee has stated that polygamous marriage contravenes a woman's right to equality with men and can have such serious emotional and financial consequence for her and her dependents. The next one is sensation seeking. Ziona may have been distant when it came to tourists, but he quickly adjusted to getting in front of cameras for interviews, as well as getting published for the world record of the biggest family. In 2007, Ziona told a local journalist that even after 38 wives, he was still wanting to expand his family, and he planned on going to the United States to do it. Every year on Ziona's birthday, the entire village has a 3-day festival in his honor, complete with hymns that are sung strictly in Ziona's name. Unfortunately, These are the only characteristics that can be determined due to the fact that no one has spoken out or defected from the group to tell us about how Ziona was behind closed doors or when the cameras weren't around. Next up is the characteristics of a cult, starting with revolutionary ideology. In general, ideologies are a set of beliefs, but revolutionary ideologies are sets of beliefs that go against traditional beliefs, such as communism and socialism. Ziona's sector is a communist sector. Ziona's entire village have a trade for income, especially woodworking. But any income that the followers make, every cent has to be handed over to Ziona, which he liked to call them donations. Ziona not only got all of the income made by his followers, he also controlled what industries the followers could work in, with most being forced into woodworking. Another characteristic of a cult is developing rituals, myths, celebrations to allow the group to mark time. Cults do this to keep making followers feel like they're a part of something, kind of like a reward, but it usually ends up being strictly for the leader's benefit. June 12th of every year is celebrated in Ziona's village as Founding Day, the day that marks when the group was made by Ziona's grandfather in 1942. As I've stated previously, there's a 3-day celebration just for Ziona's birthday. No one else's birthday in the village is celebrated like his. Of course, claiming to be a Mormon sector, Ziona allows the village to celebrate Christmas and New Year's. Ziona also has his followers celebrate the death anniversaries of his father and grandfather, the two men who also claim they were chosen by God for polygamy. Next is a very prevalent characteristic among cults: anti-family, anti-female, anti-children. As the United Nations Human Rights Committee has stated, polygamy is anti-female in that it takes away any equality a woman could ever have with a male. Ziona's wives are used as sexual objects. In India, prearranged marriages are still practiced, but Ziona has taken this practice beyond its limit by having all of his wives subjected to his choice. All followers' marriages were prearranged by Ziona. This is anti-female and anti-family. And finally, a shared devotion to a person, place, object, or belief. Ziona ran his village as if he were the king, from all income belonging to him to all decisions going through him first. Ziona truly believed he was chosen by God to be worshipped and practice polygamy, and followers were to treat him as such. But on June 13, 2021, Ziona was rushed to the hospital and was pronounced dead on arrival. His death has been attributed to hypertension and diabetes. 2 of Ziona's sons are now in the running to take over the village and begin their lineage with polygamy. Overall, I truly believe that this religious sector is a cult by what information I could find. Not a lot is known about this group because no one that has defected has come forward with any other information than what I've presented to you. And I highly doubt anyone will because the followers are mostly made up of families that have been there since the beginning. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.